all, myself Vaibhav. In our today's session of automated trading, we are continuing to work with the fractals along with the MinMax, and this is the second part of the series which we started yesterday. This is the technical description of the fractals and the min-max for optimizing purpose, the ATR for entry and exit. And today we are going to do further optimization for that, basically to help us determine the trend of the underlying instrument. We are going to use the combination of the EMA on the daily time frame chart, the 10 EMA and the 20 EMA, and this is a fairly simple indicator where more weightage is given to the recent price, and then the average is calculated on a given time frame for a time period which we might deem fit. Before we get started, there is a standard disclaimer. Here I would like to remind you that this station is simply for the tutorial purpose and no claim is being made regarding the profitability or otherwise of the algorithms which you will be developing during the session. Suppose if you want to use any of it, I would recommend that you do extensive trial runs for maybe months and even years, and also allow it to run on the demo account to get a clear cut idea of the efficacy of the said algorithms. And nothing in the webinar is to be constructed as an advice to trade or for any particular setup. With that note, we get started for the session. So in yesterday's session, we developed a bare bone structure, and today we are going to add some more teeth to it. If you want to use a now, here, what we will try to do in today's session is we want to trade with the trend, but at the same time, we want fair bit of correction to have happened. So this is the EMA structure on the daily time frame chart. So the time frame that has been defined is daily, and we will be looking for a crossover. So whenever the 10 EMA is trading lower than the 20 EMA, we will be looking for the sell trade, and whenever the 10 EMA is trading above the 20 EMA, we will be looking for a buy trade. At the same time, to make sure that we are not really getting involved when there has been substantial move already, we will be bringing in one more condition that the last tick price should be below this 10 EMA for buy purpose and above this 10 EMA for the sell purpose. So we will try to make sure that correction has been there, and then on top of that the min max condition is also going to be there. We will want the, if suppose if we are going in for a sell trade, as here the EMA crossover is in sell bearish momentum, the 10 EMA is lower than the 20 EMA. So suppose if in such instances when we are looking for a sell trade, we will want the current maxima to be higher than the maxima 29 hours back. This is the maxima drawn on the 30 hours. So as and when it will become equal, the algorithm will start trading, and also when it will start falling, the current maxima will be less than the maxima 29 hours back, then also no trade will happen. So only when the fractal is here, the trading will happen and system will place the new orders. And at the same time, we don't really want to be trading when the prices are in upward momentum. We don't want to get involved. We want the consolidation to happen, and only when next fractal will happen we want to trade. So whenever the fractal's value is equal to the maximum value, we won't be getting involved in trade, and also we will want at least 5 to 6 hours of consolidation to have happened. So because of that, we will put in one more condition that the current maxima should be equal to the maxima 6 hours back. That will mean that at least 6 hours of consolidation has happened, and during that process the next fractal has formed, and this fractal we will define with a combination of 3 on the each side. So instead of a traditional setup where there are 2 candles on the each side of the fractal of lower highs, for a bullish fractal we will be going with a combination of 3 candles on each side, and similarly for a bearish fractal also we will need 3 candles on each side with higher lows. So we will take this minimum value, and then we will look for a buy trade during the buy setup. For that we will also need the crossover of these 10 and 20 EMAs to be in the bullish zone, somewhere like this. So here uh, now that the EMA crossover is in bullish territory. But one more thing is, as I said, we will also want the elastic price to be less than the 10 EMA. But I think instead of going for a tick price, even if we take this 30 EMA, 30 min max condition, we will put in condition that the 30 hours minimum should be less than the 10 EMA rather than the last tick price. So whenever the price momentum picks up, and even in next leg, we will be able to go for a fresh trading opportunity, and that will be a lot better, I feel. Also, one more thing we can do is we bring in condition that last hour should have closed in green for a buy trade, and it should have closed in red for a sell trade. Then we will place in the order closer to the fractal maximum or the minimum. So we will try to get involved for a fresh trade closer to the fractals value, the maximums for a sell trade, and the minimums value for the buy trade. So we will define a price point, and then we will place the order somewhere close to 5% of the ATR. The ATR we will use for this purpose, for defining the entry and exit. So let us get started for building the algorithm. I hope you have got the point of how we are going to proceed here onward. So yesterday we had done these instrument subscription, the Euro USD fractal. We had taken this, but we didn't really change this value. So today we make it shift 3, and the number of bars on each side to 3. And yes, okay, so we have made this change, and here instead of 5 may make it 6. As I was working with the setup, I realized we can better optimize it if we put in some more conditions. So in today's session we do some changes. The ATR remains as it is, daily value, and we will also need to bring in 2 more min-max blocks, as we also need the min-max values of 30 time period, 29 hours back. So we need to do that as well. We had done this calculation of the 15% of the ATR, and we will use that for the stop loss level, 15% of the ATR. But for this other requirement, we will for a entry point we will actually make it 5% from the fractal value. So we will need to make some changes in that as well. So today we bring in 2 min-max blocks. we make it hourly. Shift 29. Here also hourly. And we make shift 29, that is the look back period is now going to be 29 hours back. Here these calculations which we did yesterday are not really going to serve our purpose, so we kind of change them and we bring in fresh EMA conditions, and for that we will need two EMA blocks. We make it daily. Now we will need to start with some calculations here. We make this 15% is need to be changed to 5% of the ATR. So we take this variable and we edit its value. So it will be 0.05. Now we need to bring in the last hourly candle. So we take info get historical candle. So if we are going for a buy trade, we will want last hour to have closed with gains. If we want a sell trade, we will check whether the last hourly candle has closed with losses. So for that we will take this hourly candle and we will take shift 1. Okay, now for calculation purpose we will leave some space. We will need we have got this 5% of the ATR calculation done, and then we will need to add or deduct from the fractal values depending on the side of the trade. So first of all, let's start with the buy side, and as and when required we will do the further calculations as well. So here component trading, we need multiple action. So we leave one row empty enough of space. Suppose if we need to do further optimization, so we keep that space intact. Now, first thing first, whenever the EMA values are pointing in a bearish trajectory, we want the sell trade to happen. When the EMA crossover is in the bullish zone, we want the buy trade to happen. So we take these EMA values and we are yet to define the time period. Here we make it 10 and 20 combination, so this will be 10 and this will be 20, and we will need EMA 29 to be greater than the EMA 30 for a buy trade to happen. Then first input greater than second input, then the minimum value comes into play, and minimum value should be less than the 10 EMA. So we go for the minima, and that is current minima value, and for current minima value we are going to need to look for the bid side low price. Okay, so this is minima 19 should be less than the EMA 29, so we take that, it should be less. Okay, now the EMA related conditions are fulfilled. We will need to now bring in two MinMax blocks with shift 29, and here we have them. So we take the values and we compare. So we will need to compare these value here, and it should be bid and the low price. So we take this and so the minima here comes the minima 27, and we now need the minima 19, which is also on the bid side low price, and the minima 19, that is the current minima, should be less than the minima 29 hours back. So that is the purpose of defining this condition, and here this candle should be ask side and of the high value high price. So here we get this, and now as I said, we shouldn't be getting involved when the price momentum is still strong and the values are falling. And to make sure that's not the case, we will need the current minima to be equal to the minima 6 hours back. That means the selling pressure is subsiding to some extent. So here we take so the minimum 19 should be equal to minima 6 hours back of the bid side low price. So minima 19 should be equal to minima 20, and here we had this requirement that minima 19 should be less than the minima 29 hours back. So here and now the next condition is that minima 19 should be equal to minima 20. That means the instrument is no longer falling sharply, and rather it has entered into a consolidation phase. So we make this. So let's arrange these blocks. So we have defined the EMA condition and MinMax condition. And here we have arranged this condition so far. Now next condition, we will need to look at the last hour's closing pattern. For a buy trade, it should have closed with gains. That means candle 31's closing value was higher than the opening value, so we look for the candle 31's data. So here is candle 31 and its closing value should be higher than the opening price. So here we candle close should be greater than the candle open in the case of candle 31. Now we need to compare the fractal values. We don't really want to get involved in the trade when the price momentum is still strong and the maxima is rising. So only when the fractal maximum is lower than the maxima value of last 30 hours, we will go for a fresh trade. To make sure, we will need to compare maxima 16's value. We have defined these with shift 3 and the number of bars on each side is also 3. So only after 3 hours have passed since the formation of the maxima, the setup will complete. So here we compare this to the current maximum value of the ask. No. Oh, actually, this maximum condition should be set for the sell side. For the buy side, we actually want the minimum conditions to be fulfilled, and we will need the current minimum 16 to be greater than the minimum 19, that is current minimum of the last 30 hours. And I will explain to you on the chart as well how that will look like. So here this link, this flow should be disconnected and it should be joined here. So as we are nearing the end of today's session, we will need to do a lot of calculations, but before that I will show to you what we have done on the algorithms Visual Forex platform in the chart. So once again I will try to explain to you the setup so far. We want the minimum value to be falling, that's why we have said now this is into a selling territory. So let us go back in time when the EMA condition was in a buy mode. So here when the minimum value is falling, the current minimum is less than the minimum 29 hours back, and when actually the fractal minimum is higher than the current minimum, and also the current minimum is equals to at least the minimum 6 hours back, our trading requirement would be fulfilled. And I think this is the place, as we have put in the condition that the minimum should be less than the 10 EMA. So somewhere here the requirement would be fulfilled, and only after 3 hours have passed. Now the question is, when should we be getting involved? And as this last candle closed in green, we can indeed really place the buy order, and I think that can be just 5% of the daily ATR higher from the minimum value, and that will work out somewhere close to, depending on the ATR value, somewhere around 108.80 or somewhere close to that. And then the 50% of the ATR, 15% 15 can be kept as a stop loss, and around 30% of the daily ATR as a target price. And this time around I think it will most probably close in the loss. I am not really sure unless we test it, but as from the look of it, it really looks like that we will suffer loss here. And then the next fractal will be formed on this 14 GMT on the 8th of April. So here again we can again check for the condition, and after 3 hours have passed, we can again place a fresh order, and it seems it's not going to be fulfilled, and the price will straight away jump toward this 109 level from this condition. And then the next opportunity will arise after next round of correction, when the price again drops and then it enters into a consolidation phase around 10th of April. So we will see during the testing how our algorithm is going to work. So for today's session, that's it from my side. We will be continuing to work with our setup in tomorrow's session as well. We will need to do some more calculation before we can finish the buy side. So thank you all for joining in. Have a profitable day ahead. See you tomorrow. Goodbye.